After getting us excited with Hypervenom remakes, Nike changed it up and announced their latest boot update with the reveal of the 6th generation Phantom 6. As a boot collector, there are very few sub-brands in modern boot history that are as fascinating as Nike's awkward, troublesome and often random third silo. From the experimental quad fit of Vision to the absolute genius of GX, the third model in Nike's lineup has gone through many reboots and has given me a very much a love-hate relationship. So for this video, I'm going to take you right back through the major evolution of the Phantom, sharing the tech that defined them, some rare additions worth hunting out, and how Nike not once, not twice, but 3 times broke me with controversial changes and direction before creating one of the most collectible lines of the last decade. My name's Ian, aka BootCollector, and this is the story of curating the most iconic Nike Phantom football boots collection in the world. To understand the Phantom, we've got to rewind it to the early 2000s. This is where Nike introduced the Total 90 line, a boot built around power and bold design. T90 was iconic. From the rubber strike zones to asymmetrical lacing, it was just made for finishers. An iconic boot with iconic players. Rooney, Figo, even Ronaldinho rocked the T90. 2 decades later, the swoosher are definitely tapping into that nostalgia, albeit with a fashion focus rather than on pitch. The revolution started with T90 Laser, Nike telling us to put it where we wanted, with some of the best marketing around. My collection started to grow, and so did my fondness for the Laser. Those rings on the boot were a placebo for smashing 40-yarders and top bins every time. The Laser went through 4 generations, with definitely odd numbers being standout. Laser 1, Laser 3, Prime Rooney, Prime Torres. The boots are aggressive, but Jesus, they were heavy. Power needed weight, also we thought. From the collection, obviously those 2 stand out in their launch colourways. However, I do have a fondness for the ECO8 pack, where the T90 strike takedowns were never actually released. To no surprise, they now look exactly what you would expect a 17-year-old boot to look like. And then, in 2012, seemingly out of nowhere, Nike took the Laser and T90 outside and killed it off, dead. I was distraught. How could they get rid of T90? How could then this agility-focused, lightweight playmaker boot they introduced, called Hypervenom, even seek to replace the total power hole in my boot collecting life? What is this mesh-based Nike skin-upper about, hey? Where are the fins, the blades, the rubber for swerve and power? Why have you done this, Nike? Why? And what do you mean, a decade later, this would be almost the most revered football boot of all time? I still bought them, of course. That black and orange colourway is probably the most collectible boot of all time too. It's funny how things work out. Then Nike did what they normally do. Can't keep still, so brought out the Hypervenom 2, which, let's be clear, was not in the same league. In fact, not even in the same solar system. These Jordan-Neymar collabs are probably the highlight, but not one that's going to get people excited, in all honesty. Fortunately, the 3rd generation Hypervenom steered things back on track by ironically looking back towards the golden T90 era. That meant strike zones, raised textured uppers, asymmetrical lacing. It was a great boot, the Hypervenom 3, and had a sole plate to match too. Definitely some winners in the boot collecting stakes, no more than these Harry Kane Hypervenom 3s, not only limited to 100 pairs, but thanks to some timely contact, my pair are also signed by the man himself. Alright, back to the evolution, and important to mention by now, the Nike roster had swelled to 4 silos again, with the long-lasting Mercurial and Tiempo accompanied by the Hypervenom, and we also had Magista. And then, in 2018, seemingly out of nowhere, Nike took the Hypervenom and Magista outside and killed them off, dead. Again. In the aftermath of the killing spree, Nike took the DNA of the Hypervenom and Magista, split the core DNA into 2, giving us a new silo name in the process, and yet made it more confusing, I reckon. The 2 new boots were both Phantom models, the Phantom Venom taking on the Hypervenom torch of power, accuracy and agility, and the other side introduced the Phantom Vision, or Vision as I prefer. The Venom actually didn't feel too much of a departure from the Hypervenom, apart from the upper and the sole plate and the fit and the aesthetic. But other than that, there was some familiarity in there. In fact, I quite like it. And this future DNA Venom, taking the design of the T90, another release that's near the top of desirable lists for the collection. The Vision, though, gave us new tech, exciting supposedly, like quad fit mesh and ghost laces, and an early example of Cyclone 360 in a stud layout. There were some interesting releases from a collection point of view. I still held on to a couple, like these EA Sports collabs, but not really because I like the model, more that they are limited and certainly appreciating in value, so I'm in no hurry to part with them. Nike deemed the Vision needed a facelift, visual upgrade with the release of the Vision 2, an upgrade it most certainly was not. And then, in 2020, seemingly out of nowhere, Nike took the Phantom Vision and Venom outside and killed them off dead. I know. Again. From the flames of this latest coal came the Phantom GT. GT stood for Generative Texture, bringing the silos back down to a trio. The concept was based on pressure maps and strike zones with a raised 3D texture and off-center lacing intended for better ball contact. It was now a control boot, although they could have saved a lot of time and money and just brought back the undisputed goat of control, the CTR 360. Dipping into the archives once again, my favourite was this Scorpion GT, a homage to the iconic Secret Tournament ad from the early 2000s, although the ball is probably more standout than the boots, to be honest. Then, because they can't leave anything alone, came the GT2, which smoothed the upper, added more surface coverage, and some purists prefer the original texture, and I've got to agree. The GT2 didn't last long either, ruthlessly cold in the middle of a Winter World Cup for what is, for me, Nike's best ever football boot. Yep, you heard that right. It's 2022 and Nike dropped the Phantom GX, absolute game changer, and what would become for this boot collector an obsession with acquiring every variation possible, which, had I known at the time Nike would go grip knit mad, I might have introduced some restraint. Grip knit replacing Flyknit as the dominant upper gave us this sticky, almost suede-like feel that plays totally different in hand than anything before it. The sole plate adds some serious agility, and the asymmetrical fit made the GX the most anatomical Phantom yet. But it was the releases that swung it for me. That Flyknit racer-inspired Link, that Wild Flames, the epic Thunder specials. But the two grails for collecting are these: the rare United Golden Pack for the winners of the Women's World Cup, where only 164 pairs were released in this epic white and rose gold colourway. But the real gem is the Haaland record-breaking Force 9 limited edition. Only in his size, 9.5, and only 52 pairs were made, the number of goals Haaland scored for Man City in 22-23. For me, the GX is where Phantom found its identity, a pure playmaker's boot that still looks aggressive, and as a collector, it features some of the most sought after and renowned releases from any Nike silo. I've mentioned several times how Nike are on a good thing, but don't realise what they've got. They can't just leave it alone. The GX was and still is so good that any follow-up was, let's be honest, going to be a disappointment. However, the introduction of the Phantom Lunar ahead of the Women's World Cup in 2023 took this to a whole new level. Developed and designed from the ground up for female athletes, it didn't connect with consumers. Despite Nike thinking differently and under the hood, the premise was actually very clever. Mark this one up to the football boot world not being progressive enough to adopt a change in thinking. However, this launch colourway shows the design and innovation concept best, but it's not one I'd be rushing to shout about. And here's where things go even a little bit more wrong for the GX line. The Lunar is quietly ushered away as Nike update the GX to a second generation. The GX2 gets the sole plate from the Lunar, gets even more grip knit and introduces a high and low version where Nike tried to sustain the Lunar name, but it's not long before we all discard it and just refer to the boot as GX2 High. But the upper is stiff, the sole plate layout is too aggressive, the visual loses everything that made the GX exciting and interesting. The colour layout doesn't lend itself to any good designs, it all feels like the Phantom line is an afterthought alongside new tech dropping into Mercurial. There aren't really any must-have collectibles, a few random collaboration versions like the SoCal, but it's not a pretty silhouette. It's back-to-back disappointments for the swoosh and potentially signals another cull on the horizon. And then Nike go and drop the Phantom 6. And I don't think it's premature to say Phantom is back. Everything feels different. The boot looks good, the upper feels good. It launches with a limited edition. Nike have a bit of swagger back. The Phantom 6 definitely looks back to look forward, bringing that T90 Hypervenom and overall Phantom DNA back into the game. I'm genuinely excited to see what Nike have in store for this model, and you can be sure I'll be adding any specials to the collection as I continue to build the best Nike Phantom football boot collection in the world. So there you have it, the full evolution of the Phantom line. From the hidden laces of the Vision to the sticky precision of the GX, it's one of Nike's most design-driven silos and one littered with collectible gems. As a fellow boot fan, what's your favourite model? Got a rare GX Special Edition, or maybe still holding a pair of dead stock Vision Elite DFs? Drop it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more deep dives, make sure to like, subscribe, and obviously comment. It means a great deal. Until next time, peace!